Hi, fellow Django developers. Hezekiah here from alwaysdjango.com, where we discuss interesting Django topics that helps you grow, improve as a Django developer. So if that sounds interesting, like, subscribe, share this video with anyone you think will find this video interesting too. So before we continue, I want to apologize for my crooked voice. I'm having some kind of cold and nausea, so pardon me, bear with me. Let's continue. So today we are going to discuss how to use .env files in Django, and like always I will leave the link to this article in the description so that maybe you can check it later. So what are .env files? You say .env files are .env files, also known as environment variable files. They offer information about a process's operating system. These operating systems could be pipelines, development, or production environment, etc. With .env files, you could store project, in this case Django projects, password, database credentials, API credentials, etc. Basically, any information you do not want to share with any other person. Benefits of using .env files: you have number one, security; number two, better configuration. So with .env files, it's very easy for you to adapt to different environment and stages of your applications. Most times these configurations, there are configurations you want during production and others you don't want during development. For instance, you may want to disable caching for development and enable it for production. With .env files, since you have your settings variables placed in a single place, it's very easy, it's relatively easy for you to adapt to these changes. Now we are going to use a package called Python decouple, right? Python decouple package. So this is the package here. This is the Python decouple package. You say this is a Django module used basically to separate different parts of our application. As the name suggests, it decouples different sections of your project. So why use Python? Most times when you see most Django developers implement .env files in their project, right? They usually use this Django environment package, right? Which I also feel is okay. But with Python decouple, there are some things I feel like hands down Python decouple package does better than any other way. So it says number one, why use Python decouple package? You say it can be used for any other Python project type, not just Django. So you can use it for any other Python project. Ease of setup, right? It's very easy for you to set up. You just install, make few changes, and start using it. It allows you to use not just the env files, you can also use im files for your security. It also allows you to use different env files for a single project, right? So steps to set up .env files in your Django using Python decouple. So we install this Python decouple package in your project, but before then we have to have a Django project, which I already do, right? I already do. This is a simple Django project. As you can see, there is really nothing on this project. We just want to learn how to use .env file, and that's really it, right? So say first steps: install Python decouple in your project. To install this package in your Django project, simply open your command line to your project directly and enter the below pip installation command. So this command, you simply go here, we copy to come to our project. We'll open the terminal, we'll paste here, we press enter. Then it will simply install this Python package in your project. Obviously you have to open your command line to your project directly, right? But as you can see, it's saying requirement already satisfied because I already installed this package. But if you run this process, it will run the pip installation process and install for you, and that's it. So second step, you say create the .env file. So after installation, after installing the Python decouple package, create a .env file in your project root directory. Note: this .env file must be in the same directory path as the manage.py file of your project. The .env file, note also that the .env file does not have any extension. It's simply .env, right? So we come here, this .env file must be in the same directory as your manage.py. So we create a new file .env with no extension, is simply .env, right? So the third step, you say copy your security credentials to .env file. At this point, your project is ready to use .env file. You could now copy your project credentials, email configuration, etc. to this file. Here we are simply going to copy the security key and the debug to the .env file, the security key and the debug variables for a Django project. If you go to your settings.py file, this is the settings file for this project. Is the settings file for this project. So we said we are just going to copy these two variables. This one here, we'll come here, paste this, come here to debug, we'll paste this. Now there are some guides here, there are some things we noted that we should do with these variables. We say no space between the variable key equal to and the variable value, right? So no space between this variable key, this equal to here, and this value, right? So this space here out, this space here out, also this space out, this space out, right? So it should be like this. Then you say no quotation mark around your variable. So because the .env file, the config function, which we are going to discuss very soon, the config function of the .env of the Python decouple returns this variable by default as strings. There should be no quotation marks around this. There should be no quotation. It's just the value of this variable that we have here. No quotation mark around here, no quotation mark around there, right? So now we have these credentials here in the .env file. Now here you can have any other credential, your email host configuration, your email, anything. Maybe you want to set up emailing or for your Django project, which I'll also leave a link below if you want to learn how to send HTML emails and normal emails through your Django project. I'll leave a link in the description. We also have an article on alwaysdjango.com where we discussed it. I will leave a link to those articles below. So after this you say import the config package of config function, obviously, to your environment variable, to use your environment variables, right? So in your settings.py here, which is where we want to install, where we want to use this our environment variables, we say to import this config, we import it from the couple import config, right? The couple is simply the package you just in the Python decouple package. So from the couple import config, right? So we come here to use this variable. Now we come here, we say config, then we pass in the name of the variable, which is secret key here. So paste, right? Now for debug, we also do the same thing. Config, what's the name? It should be debug. I'm right. Yeah. So these two variables, security key and debug variable, we just use them here. So at this point, necessarily this if we run our development server python manage .py run server. Let's see if I can type. You can see here that our project is running correctly. So these variables have been set up. We can use the .env files right now. You can just add the variables you want here, use them, import the config file wherever you want to use them, and that's it. It's just set up. So that's basically why I prefer the Python decouple package to maybe any other thing where you have to start setting up, making a little bit changes and things like that. So next thing we have here, we have typecasting arguments in Python decouple, right? If you check here, we have this debug variable, and as we know, for our Python, for our setting.py file for our Django project, this should be a boolean. The value of this debug should be a boolean. But here we have as we say, this config method will return these values as strings. So we need a way to tell Python decouple, or tell the settings.py file, or tell Django that, hey, the value of this variable should be a boolean and not maybe a string, right? So to typecast, say in the above example, we use that to explain. To typecast Python decouple values, you pass the type argument. So the type argument, you come here, you say type is equal to, what type is this? It should be boolean, right? So but here we mentioned that in the above example we have used string and boolean. That's here we have used string and we have used boolean here. Other available types include integer, list, dict, tuple, and bytes, right? So you can use any of them. Any one you want to use, you can use it here. Forgot our comma here. So that's it. That's really it. To maybe use a string here, you say type is equal to string, right? So since the value of this thing should be string, but this is not really necessary, so but we'll just do it. So providing default values. Now if maybe there is, for any reason, this value should not be in the .env file, which may lead to your project, your application to stop running and things like that, right? You can provide a default value for these values here. So you can come here, we'll pass in the, say default here. We can say the default for this will be debug, or let's say true, right? So when it goes to this .env file and for any reason it doesn't see, maybe here we don't have an allowed host, we don't have an allowed host here, we don't have a value for an allowed host here. So instead of maybe coming here and do config and passing the allowed host, which will make our project not to run, which will obviously make our project not to run, or make our project to shut down and make our server not to run. Instead of passing this, you can say where you do not know if this value exists in the .env file, you can say, let's say type here is a list, then the default is this. So default, by default, this should be this, and if it does not exist, is this. If it does exist, it will take the value from this place, right? So this is basically how you use the .env file in your Django project. So another point, environment variables and version controls. It's very important to note that .env file should not be pushed to any version control like GitHub. This will defy the importance of the .env file, since it makes our application credentials public. Before pushing your project code to GitHub, for instance, you must include .env in your .gitignore file for your project. So what are gitignore files? Gitignore files is a file used to tell Git commands which files in your project should not be committed or pushed to the repos, right? A file that like your virtual environment .env ini etc should not be pushed to your Git repo. So before, maybe after creating these .env files and working on your project, making changes, before you push this project to any version control, GitHub, Gitbucket, or anything, you should have a, for GitHub we have .gitignore. So in your gitignore file, you must have this, you must have this .env .env included in this git ignore. So if you run git commit git init, let's run git init first, then git commit with a message, with maybe a message like this, so this will not include this .env file to your git repo. So when you do git push, when you git push to a git repository, right, when you git push to a git repository, this .env file will not be included in files that will be pushed to your GitHub repository, right? So this is very, very, very important, because if you push this file to your GitHub repository, anyone can come to your GitHub repository and see these files, and maybe if the git repo is public, they can even download your files and see the credentials that we are trying to hide by using the .env files, right? So this is basically it. This is the typical .env file for a Django project. We have here the Python cache file, the local settings.py, the db.sqlite. This is your local database. You don't have to push this. Don't have to push this, and many other things. You have the download, you have the manifest, you have. So this is a typical .env file for .git ignore file for a Django project. You can maybe come here, copy this file, and go to your git, come here and just paste the whole thing here to maybe remove all the files that you are sure. If you check here, you have the env files, the .env file, the virtual environment file. So these files will not be pushed to your git repository. So basically, this is it. This is how you can use .env file in your Django project. If you have any question, any arguments or something like that, you can leave a comment below, and I promise to get back, reply to you, and see what advice I can give or something like that. So this is it. Thank you for staying in touch. Thank you for checking out this video. Like and comment and all the good stuff. So peace. Hezekiah here saying thank you, peace, and have a nice day.